Hello and welcome to Take It D with Mike and JD. I am JD,
And I'm Mike.
and we're going to be talking about the last 2 weeks of the NFL season, week 2 and week 3. So far, the last 2 weeks they haven't been great for my Steelers, but you seem to have been having a
But
great last 2 weeks for the Packers.
they have been pretty good for me, I must say.
So before I start in on my rage-filled scream about the Steelers, how do you feel the Packers are right now?
Look, I'm really happy with how they're going. On the last podcast we did, which was after the first round, I was pretty concerned. I thought we got a long season here. I kind of reflected a bit after that, and really thought back to, well, it was round one, and we always suck in round one because for whatever reason the Packers just treat the preseason as a joke. Most teams use that as a chance to get rid of some rust, work on combinations. The Packers just do that in round one and just take the loss for some reason. But I'm not on the coaching staff, so I don't understand the intricacies of that. Um, but it was double. It's always doubly perplexing when we know that we're starting playing our biggest division rival. It's a huge game, and we basically just say no. We'll take the handicap there. But anyway, I'm in a positive frame of mind, so I'm not going to dwell on that. But yeah, look, I love the way that they're building. The previous years, our defense has really been our Achilles heel, and it's really just been, what kind of magic can Rodgers do to get us the win. But to see the defense to play like they did the last 2 weeks, especially against Tampa, and yes, I know that, Evans and some of the other star receivers were out. But I mean, they've still got Gage. They've still got Darden, who's not a star, but he's a good receiver. And most of all, they still got Tom Brady. So that was a great effort. And they've got Fournette, who is a great. But while he's getting towards the later part of his career, he's so they still have a decent offense, and we completely shut them down and kept Packers in the game in the second half, who, after such a good first half, just completely stagnated. No punt, interception, punt. So that was really pleasing, and I'm loving how Dobbs is coming along. It's so often with most teams, you kind of have the star of the preseason, and the Packers, that they've had that most, the start of the preseason, which is usually either, Equanimeous St. Brown or NBS. They're going to have a breakout year, and they basically can't catch a cold for the rest of the actual regular season. So to see, this guy who's had big raps, he's in the preseason, and he looks legit. You know what I mean? And he's not just kind of getting gimme balls from Rodgers. He's taking contested catches. He's picking up good yards after the catch. I'm a big fan. So really liking all of that. And the other thing I'm liking is that without Adams, the Packs are finally being forced to do what they should have been doing. And whereas Rodgers would just always force the ball to Adams, double coverage, triple coverage, doesn't matter. That's where the game's going. The ball's going. The receivers basically were just there as window dressing like the other ones. But now, they have to spread it around, and that makes defenses, second guess. Like, they don't know where the ball's going. Whereas, especially in the playoffs, when, defenses have had all this time to kind of work on the game, they just know shut down Adams and you shut down the Packers. So I think in the long run, this is going to be really good for them.
Yeah, you can, after getting spanked by the Vikings in week 1, you can see, obviously, they were playing the Bears, which, Rodgers owns. I think he is a team majority owner there.
He absolutely is.
And they played, Tampa Bay's a good team. They have a really good defense. Like you said, even though Jones and Evans were out, they still had to show up because it's Tom Brady. And, as you saw in New England for the last few years of his career, yes, he did have Edelman, but the other people he had, they were nobodies. They were undrafted free agents that he was throwing, 800, 900 yards a year to. So you have to have confidence right now in where the Packers are at. Whereas on the flip side, the Steelers have had two of the most, I think, frustrating games really in a long time where, we played a New England team where our defense still without TJ Watt played really well. We lost against Cleveland. The defense played okay. Really the defense held them to 23 points. They got a last-second touchdown on the pitch plays at the end. So it looks like the game was more not as close as really what it was. But it really, the Achilles heel right now is this offense. It just doesn't know what it wants to be. You went out and you drafted Najee Harris 2 years ago in the first round. You tried to invest in your line this offseason with Cole and Daniels, and it just isn't working. And Mitch Trubisky is a quarterback. I mean, I think he's an NFL type quarterback. He can play in the NFL.
By definition, he is a quarterback.
That is true. You can't take that away from him. But the play calling is what's really frustrating to watch because they'll start and they'll do a run play, and because their line isn't good, they lose a yard or they gain a yard, and that's it. Then on their second down, they run a bubble screen to Chase Claypool or Deontay Johnson, and it's like 3rd and 6, and they throw deep. It's the same 3 plays over and over and over and over and over again, and they never, ever work. They're basically just counting on the talent of their players to make plays, which, yes, you should, but there also needs to be a plan in place where you can make, call plays that just work. You're not just taking chances every single play. So,
Exactly. You've got to have those, those ones that are in the pocket for, when you need a third down or that, you can pull it out and barring some disaster, this is going to pick up those yards, 100%.
Yeah, and I never see, that great slant over the middle. This whole Matt Canada offense is bubble screens, 8-yard hitches, and flies. That's it. They don't ever run anything else. And not to say that Mitch is bad, I don't think he's been given that much of an opportunity. They went out and they drafted George Pickens in the second round. He had an amazing catch in Cleveland, but there just hasn't been a wow factor with this offense yet. And I think it stems from a terrible offensive line. They're just playing very poorly. But I also have just completely lost faith in this play calling. It's been the same. I thought maybe Ben, or late in his career, just wasn't the guy to run this high-speed Matt Canada offense. But you get a guy who can actually move, do it, and it's still bad. But, at least week 2, I felt better because the rest of the AFC North lost also. The Browns blew it to the Jets. The Ravens blew it to the Dolphins. And Cincy lost to Dallas. So week 2, I was feeling okay because everybody else lost. So I didn't feel as bad. And I was down in Maryland on vacation, and there's a ton of Ravens fans down there. To see them all leave the bar from my hotel all mad, that kind of helped make me feel better. But week 3, it's frustrating. The defense, if you can hold a team to about 20 points, you would hope that you can win. You hope that your offense can score 28 or 30. So, Mink has been playing good. The secondary has been great, and really missing TJ Watt has definitely slowed the defense down a little bit, but you really miss his presence back there, as he really just messes plays up with his speed and his strength to get in the backfield, the way he can drop down and block balls and stuff. So hopefully, since apparently it wasn't a full tear, he doesn't need surgery. They say about 6 weeks at the minimum. That's about 4 more games without him. Hopefully when he comes back, he can help have the defense win games. But I'm not over on the season. I think this week they should beat the Jets. They never beat the Jets in New York, but thankfully they're playing them in Pittsburgh. So hopefully they can bounce back and become 2-2 because, the Ravens won again. The Browns won again, and the Bengals won their first game of the year. So this is the point where we got to keep with the teams up in the standings and not start to fall back early in the year and play from behind. So I don't know if I would put Pickett in right now. All of Pittsburgh is saying put Pickett in. I don't think Trubisky is the actual issue. I think he's part of it. I don't know if putting Kenny Pickett in solves it.
I agree with that. I don't think it solves it. And look, I mean, I joke and am pretty harsh on Mitch Trubisky,
Right.
but he's definitely not as bad as even I make out. And I wouldn't be talking about Trubisky like this if it wasn't he wasn't the QB for the Bears for so long. He has had, out of all the recent quarterbacks, he has landed in probably the two worst, or amongst the worst positions he could. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was at the Bears with two changes of coaches.
Number 2 overall pick, the sort of what a team thinks they're getting when they trade up to get you at number 2. You're supposed to come in and play and be great right then.
Yeah, and then he had the curse of Nagy. Like, I mean, that's not good for anyone. And now he's landed there, and I'm not trying to be harsh, but your O-line sucks.
Well, he's tasked to be a stopgap, really. Like he wasn't brought in to be the future. He was brought in to just hold us over until they believe Kenny Pickett is ready. So I think if he's healthy, Trubisky probably plays the whole year, and then next year he becomes the backup, a la Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance, where we'll have Trubisky on the bench and Pickett. Unless Trubisky's hurt, there could be a chance if Trubisky goes down. There could be a chance they put Mason Rudolph in and not play Pickett at all. I know they have been dressing Pickett and not Rudolph, but it wouldn't surprise me if they really want to save Pickett. And that's why I think they drafted him in the first round, so they could have that extra year, so they could burn the first year and still have him for 4 more years under his rookie deal. But
and that's what they should do in my opinion. Like, because I mean, you're just going to be hurting. I mean, Trubisky's already had his career hurt, and I mean, I don't think he's a great quarterback. I also don't think he's an awful one, but he is what he is now. So what is the point of fix up your O-line and all that kind of shit before you put Pickett in there if he's your future?
Yeah, and it's funny under Tomlin. Either the defense is really good or the offense is really good. So when Tomlin took over and they won their Super Bowl, they had one of the best defenses ever in that mid to late 2000s Pittsburgh Steelers defense. It was always number 1 in almost everything. Then starting in the 2010s when they went about 8-8, they started to have a really good offense where you had Antonio Brown, you had Mike Wallace, you had Le'Veon Bell, you still had Heath Miller. So during that time they had really good offense, but all that defense from the late 2000s has retired or got too old, so they were getting blown out. They were just giving up plays and plays and plays. As soon as Antonio Brown left, they drafted TJ Watt, they traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cameron Hayward has really stepped up. Their defense has been good the last few years, even though they were terrible against the run, but their offense now really can't do anything. So it's trying to find this balance like you have with a Tampa Bay, or now you have with a Green Bay, Buffalo. Kansas City is still more tilted towards the offense, but they have a pretty okay defense. So it's just been frustrating that they could have a great team on one side of the ball and a bad team on the other. It's trying to find this balance, which we haven't really had during the 16 years that Tomlin's been here.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's still been a pretty crazy last 2 weeks of football. So in week 2, like I was saying, we saw the Dolphins come back from 20 down and beat the Ravens, which was really crazy. You saw the Jets come back and score 2 touchdowns late to beat the Browns. The Jaguars have won their last 2 games in convincing fashion. They shut out the Colts in week 2, and then they trounced the Chargers in week 3. So they're a winning team right now at 2-1. Other than that, let's see here. Yeah, you had that crazy overtime game with the Cardinals where they won in overtime. It's been an entertaining first 3 weeks of football. Week 1 was crazy. In the last 2 weeks, there's been these crazy comeback games. The one thing I will say, looking at this, I think the Dolphins are for real. They've beaten pretty good teams over the course of the 3 weeks. New England, okay, not to say that they're bad, but they're about average to maybe above average, especially just because who they are. But they came back and they beat the Ravens, and Lamar Jackson's having an MVP type season already. And then they muscled down and they beat the Bills. They held the Bills to under 20 points. So it's be interesting to see. And Tagovailoa has played pretty good so far this year.
Yes. Yeah.
And their defense, even though I think the whole reason why the Bills were even able to come back in that game was the offense. The Dolphins' offense really didn't do anything in the second half, kind of like the Packers. So their defense was just on the field all of the second half. And so that's what really hurts. And that's even with the Steelers, our offense isn't out there that long, and our defense is supposed to play 35, 40 minutes a game. You're just going to wear them out, and a great defense could be beat at that point. So,
but that was an amazing game. If you look at the stats line, if you didn't watch that game, you didn't see the score, and you looked at the stats, you'd go, "Wow, the Bills won and won well." Like, you know what I mean? It was really bizarre, and their offensive offense caller has been taking tips off Brady of how to destroy equipment when you have an attention.
Right. That was great. My favorite part of that is somebody else put their hand over the camera. They were like, after about 3 seconds, they were like, "Hey on," and they had to block him from destroying all that stuff.
Little bit late.
Apparently the NFL changed their rules about those tablets because they pay for them, and Brady destroyed 2 of them. So that I don't think you can. If you get throw them, you get fined or something. Now I'd have to relook at it again, but.
Yeah, but what made that is true. But what made me laugh about that? I mean, that's not the first time Brady's done it. Like, it's like, okay, he's done it again. We better actually do something now. I think it was at least twice last season he did it. But it's pretty funny because I didn't, which it makes sense. But I didn't realize they were like a league supplied device, which I guess they have to be, so they can make sure there's no, bullshit going on or anything. But
yeah, and it's also an advertisement deal with Microsoft. They don't want to have their players destroying that equipment on camera.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but looking at it, there's teams that have been surprising. Like I said, the Jaguars, they're 2-1 after 3 weeks. The Eagles, who I thought were a good team, have been playing really good football. They're 3-0. On the flip side of that, I thought the Raiders would be an okay team. They're 0-3.
Let's spend some time on the Raiders.
Sure.
Let me sound off here because I am loving this. I mean, it's the only thing I'm loving. I'm loving the Packers season so far. The second most thing I'm loving is the Raiders season. Like, fuck them. And fuck Devontae Adams. I mean, I am just... I can't understand how they're doing so bad. I mean, Adams has gone from one Hall of Fame quarterback to another, right? Derek Carr, Hall of Fame quarterback. It's just, you love to see it.
And, I mean, it's kind of been sort of heartbreaking losses. So, you had that fumble in overtime in week 2. And then you had a very close game, failing a 2-point conversion against the Titans. So, I mean, they're 0-3. Is there anybody else in the league that's 0-3 so far? No, I don't think so. The Texans are 0-2-1, so they're also winless. But at least the Texans have a tie. And the Texans have actually been playing pretty okay this year. They haven't won, but...
They're not going to be the easy beats that, I remember when we were talking in the preseason, the Texans are going to be the bye. They're not going to win a lot, but they're not going to be the type of team where I thought where you could go, okay, don't worry about this week. Let's start looking to next week when you're playing. And
it's funny, you look at the Lions last year, who didn't have a lot of wins. They were 0-11 to start the year, but a lot of their losses were one-score losses. They weren't getting blown out. It was kind of bad luck. And so with the Texans, they were winning most of last week, and they lost to the Bears. They tied with Indy, so they're playing pretty okay. I mean, they drafted pretty well. I think in about 1 or 2 years they should probably be back where they were. Other than that, the Jets are bad. The Vikings are pretty good. They're winning so far. The Chargers are a disappointment. They're 1-2. And they got blown out. They lost by 4 touchdowns to the Jaguars at home. So I think because Herbert was hurt, I don't know if that's going to be a serious thing, but them in Arizona, they're 1-2. The other team that's pretty disappointing, even though they're 2-1, they have a winning record, is Russell Wilson, and that offense in Denver has been garbage.
Yeah, it's very surprising.
I thought maybe, so week 1, he goes back to Seattle. I expect Seattle to be up for that game. So I sort of expected, okay, if he doesn't play well there, all those players on Seattle want to beat him. And then he didn't play great against Houston. And then this week, they barely beat the 49ers. And that's also because Jimmy G stepped out of the end zone for a safety. I mean, the Broncos only got 11 points, And San Fran, even though they're 1-2, they are a good team. It's just, I don't know what it is. They're just, I assume, obviously, because Russell Wilson played for 10 years in one offense, and now he's transferring over to another team, and so there should be growing pains, but not like this. You don't expect a Hall of Fame quarterback like Russell Wilson to play like this.
I think he'll come good, but it certainly surprised me.
And again, we're talking about a team that's 2-1 like this. They've won more than they've lost, but they don't feel. It doesn't feel like they're 2-1. It feels like they're 1-2 or defeated. At 0-3.
Yeah, it's probably just a case of new combinations, new scheme and that for Wilson and that, but. If they're still looking like this, even if they are still jagging wins here and there, if they're still looking like this halfway through the season, that's when you worry.
And you can't really do that in this division, So,
no.
Yes, the Chiefs lost this week, but it was a close loss. There was an interception Mahomes threw. So, they're at 2-1. Las Vegas is in the dumps in 0-3. You got the Broncos. So, this is the division, like we talked about, that you can't really afford to lose games, especially in your division play. So they need to pick it up. Also, with the Chargers being at 1-2, so the Broncos are okay right now where they sit in the standings, being tied with the Chiefs, but they got to get it together because their defense has played pretty well. So they really need that offense to step up. And speaking of who they played with the 49ers, I mean. Exactly why the 49ers restructured Jimmy G's contract is if Trey Lance got hurt or wasn't playing well. So Trey Lance broke his ankle and he's not able to play the rest of the year, and then they have Jimmy now. Jimmy didn't play that well. I would chalk it up to him not having really live snaps for over a year. You would think that he should still be able to lead that team. But you see why they didn't really want to trade Jimmy, because you had a young guy stepping in, you weren't sure. And even though he wasn't, not that he was playing poorly, I don't think he was playing the best, but he unfortunately, got hurt, so you're able to just put in your old veteran quarterback for one more year to try to get some wins. So,
yeah, I mean, it was a good idea to keep him, based on, you can bring in Lance, gradually, but it looks like a masterstroke now with his injury.
Yeah, and the other team, just looking at it here, the Colts are 1-1. I expected them to be 2-1, maybe 3-0 this year so far, because you would think that they were a good team last year. They had a great running game. They had a pretty good defense. Now you have Matt Ryan coming in, who's a very good veteran quarterback. So to just be 1-1 after this, and to have lost to the Jaguars and tied with the Texans, who you think you should be able to get wins against. Now, yes, the Colts have a big problem with the Jaguars, especially when they play in Jacksonville. They can never win there, apparently, recently. But the Colts need to start playing better. Hopefully beating the Chiefs, one of the best teams in the league, might get them going. But they've been kind of also a disappointment. But other than that, same with the Titans. You'd expect them to be better. They're 1-2 right now. They blew it to the Giants, and they got trounced by the Bills, and they barely beat the Raiders. This is really, I think, their last year before, this is their last year with Tannehill. Henry's getting a little older, even though he's huge and he's a great athletic player. So you also hope a little bit more out of Tennessee. But other than that, I think the league has basically gone the way we thought. Still excited to watch games. Thankfully, like I said, the Steelers play the Jets this week, so hopefully it's a win. So we could get back in that W column and I won't feel as bad, but...
That's probably exactly what, get the W, get some confidence in that going, and who knows what can happen.
Yeah. So other than that, that was weeks 2 and 3 of the NFL season. So thank you for listening. Please, if you haven't yet, please subscribe and comment down below how you see the season going so far. But again, thank you for listening, and I hope you have a nice day.
Thanks, guys.